Hey everybody, welcome. Yes, I am in a cable car. I am coming down the Alps. That's right. We're in Europe, in Germany, and this is an introduction for a big personality, one of the best architects out there, going to be on BS Friday in just a few moments. So Stephen Baczek, this introduction's for you from a cable car in Germany. Welcome to the show.
Okay, we're back with more BS Friday Live, and we're actually live. I'm Mark Wille. I'm here with Dave Cooper. And Dave, who's joining us today?
Mr. Stephen Baczek is with us today. We are at the Building Science Symposium, Stratford, Connecticut, and we're having a great day. And one of the main attractions and speakers here is Stephen Baczek, famous architect. You may know him as Big Red.
There you go. Hey, welcome everybody. So yeah, what a great event these are. You know, they're small and intimate, but man, are they powerful.
Yeah, it's really great to see how many people have shown up here to learn about building science and to network and collaborate. And not only amongst the guests, but also amongst folks like yourself, Jake Bruton, you know, Ben Bogey, Mark Wille, and everybody. And the whole idea here is to kind of impart all the knowledge that you have garnered over the years, Steve, and try and put some of that out there back to the world.
So this is the 8th symposium. The first 3 were in Kansas City, and later this calendar year, you'll find it in Denver, Colorado, and the home of Ric Flair, Charlotte, North Carolina.
So Steve, why don't you tell us a little bit about, you know, just quick background for those that may not know you, and what were you talking about here, and what was the knowledge you were trying to impart? And we'd like to end the show with, you know, maybe 3 tips that anybody out there can go and just start doing right away, no matter what they're doing on the job site.
Yeah, so Steve Baczek, I'm an architect. I'm registered in 4 or 5 states around the country. I do work pretty much all over east of the Rockies. West of the Rockies is a little bit of a challenge, just the logistics of getting out there. But primarily it's residential work. My daughter works with me, my son works with me, both architecture people. Before I went out on my own, I worked for Building Science Corporation. I was their first employee, worked there for 10 years. And so I have a very unique background as an architect in that I tell people I had building science parents, you know, that kind of kept me on the straight and narrow and taught me a lot about how buildings actually work, so that my design aesthetic and designs can respond to that. Where a lot of architects, they design pretty buildings and then they leave it up to somebody else to figure out how to make it work.
So when you say that, you know, how does one take from an architectural drawing and really understand what you're trying to achieve on site? Because I think you got it here on your head, you got it on the plan, but there's also the buy-in of why somebody would do it.
I think everybody has risk and everybody has skin in the game, right? Clients are spending, you know, millions and millions of dollars. I'm saying not my clients, but I'm saying clients overall in buying houses. And builders are spending a lot of time and effort putting these buildings together, using resources, and architects are spending a lot of money designing these buildings and getting them right. But there needs to be a conversation between all 3 parties to understand what is our water management strategy. Like, how are we going to make sure this is a durable, reliable, comfortable, healthy, and environmentally responsible home? Right? How do we knit that quilt together is the question. And it's not the same. It's not a single recipe. Different builders have different ways, different perspectives. Clients certainly have different perspectives and different set of values that they bring to the table. So it's almost like every project's a custom quilt.
Yeah, for sure. So as an architect, when you have a new job, and Mark, you can attest to this, right? Because you're on projects all the time. You're traveling the country working with builders and, you know, other people out there. You know, when you work with somebody as an architect and a builder says, hey, I want a high performance architect. I want a Stephen Baczek drawing my house, or somebody that has a skill set like Stephen Baczek. What should somebody expect as a builder or developer for the architect, how to work with them? Because I know you travel everywhere and you work with people. There's a process involved here.
Yeah, I mean, there is, but there's also, you know, probably one of my biggest education focuses is getting the community to have the right discussion. right? When a homeowner sits across the table, they need to ask the builder, they ask the common questions. How much does a house cost per square foot to build? And all these crazy questions, but they need to start adding things like, hey, Mr. Builder, Mr. Architect, what's your water management strategy? Like, how are you going to provide me a building that I know won't leak? What is your thermal and your comfort strategy? Do you have a typical ventilation system that you put into a house? So there's that whole kind of subset of questions that homeowners need to be asking their architects and builders so they're getting the right product. I mean, most of my clients come to me because they know that second subset of questions will be answered. But when I'm not involved in the project, obviously, they need to ask those questions.
So, gonna be asking another question here, but I have a question for everyone out there. You can put that in your chat box, YouTube or LinkedIn and the like. When you follow Stephen Baczek, you know that he's done a lot of projects in New England because he's Massachusetts based. So, what state do you think he's done the most projects in? Is it Massachusetts, or put in the other one? That's the question for all of you. And then my question, and we'll answer it at the end of the show because he knows the answer, but you give your clients homework when you're getting ready to establish the relationship with them and they're establishing the relationship with you. You have expectations on how the project could be successful, but you also help them to declare those expectations so that later on you don't find out that maybe they have a mother-in-law or a niece or a nanny that's living with them. How do you define that?
Yeah, it's very interesting because currently we have a couple projects that the people have moved away from their original architect. And so I said, and I did just that. As we embarked on the design process, I said, hey, I send out a homework email. And this is what I require in that homework email. And they were like, really, our other architect never even asked us any questions other than, hey, we want a 2-car garage, a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, with a family room on this piece of property. And I think it's kind of naive for the profession to sit there and be able to just go away and come back and say, this is the house you should live in. Because if I break down any one room in the house, we'll just use the family room, for example, right? Sometimes I have clients that say, oh yeah, Steve, we entertain every holiday. We throw Super Bowl parties. It's not uncommon to have 30 people in this room. And then I have clients that say, oh no, Steve, we don't even have a TV in our family room. We love to read. We play family board games. Well, those are two different rooms to design for, right? And they have two different solutions and results that the homeowners are looking for. And you can't give the party room to the people that don't have a TV, and you can't give, a nice set of built-ins where you can store board games to the people that want the 80-inch TV for their Super Bowl party.
Yep.
Right? So they're totally different. And then if you expand that over, the other 3,000 square feet of the house, then you get an understanding of, some people use garages just for storage. I have one right now. The son is an avid motocross. And the father and son, hey, we need extra space in the garage to work on my son's bikes together, and we need storage place for parts and tools. And so it's not a 3-car garage, it's a 3.5-car garage with a bike shop.
So from a homework perspective, give us an example of, maybe 2 questions that go out so people understand, because I look at this as, hey, if you're not working with Stephen Baczek, what should you be asking your architect?
Well, the first thing I ask all of my clients to do is write a narrative on what they think a successful home is. I tell them I want a 20 by 20 family room. That's not the appropriate answer. I want to hear, we're the kind of people that party all the time. My husband and I love to cook. We love to cook together. Our kitchen needs to satisfy 2 cooks at any given time. And that's different than the people that say, the most cooking we do is heat up pizza in a microwave. Right? So that narrative is very important, and I can fall back on it. I mean, as an architect, it helps me that when we're in the 3rd meeting and somebody says, oh, wow, why did you do this? I can say, well, in your narrative, you had asked for, this kind of extra space or whatever. But it also narrows it down when you take, for instance, the owner's bathroom in their suite. Some people want a tub.
Right.
Some people don't want a tub. Some people want it as, this hedonistic environment, like just very plush, very lavish bathroom. Some people sit there and say, hey, we get in there, do our thing, get the hell out. And then I had some clients to say, we want his and her bathrooms in the owner suite. So it's a lot different. And the most important thing I think about it is that, one, there's that discussion, but two, it buys in the homeowners. Like most homeowners, after they do it, they go, nobody ever made us think about how we wanted to live in our new house. And this was a really great exercise that forced us to think about things that we never thought about.
When you design a house, it sounds like they have a lot of opportunity to discuss, the cosmetics of how they want that house to look like or what they want amenity-wise in the house. What about the structure and how it's built? Do you have give and take on the materials that you'll use for the basic framing, insulation, air barrier? Or, is there a standard that you carry because it works?
Probably a little bit of both. Because I get some clients that come and in fact, I have a client now, like I want ICFs and light deck everywhere. And it's a non-compromise for him. And it's closing in about 18,000 square feet, this house. And, he just has his set ways. But then I just have people that say, hey, Steve, I have no idea how to put a wall together or what insulation makes the most sense. We're relying on you for that. And then I'll propose it and I'll give them an education. So when they walk away, it's not, hey, Steve said use exterior rigid insulation. No, they understand why we're using that exterior insulation, what the benefit is, and why they should be spending that money on that for their dream home.
I love the idea, like these simple tips are kind of overlooked, right? You take for granted what you do and how you do it. You're very successful, and the fact that you put yourself out there, on YouTube all the time and Instagram and all the other places, you talk about the things you're doing, it comes down to basics for a lot of people. If somebody's looking for an architect out there that does high performance, what would you say is the most important thing for them to look for?
Yeah, have that discussion with your architect early and make sure that your architect is at least, fluent in, an average discussion in things like water management, thermal management, and basic building science. Like make sure that they have a little bit, or because I've heard a homeowner say, oh yeah, when we talked to our architect, we talked a little bit about building science. They said, yeah, you don't really need any of that in a house. And the reality is the minute I put two 2x4s together, I'm creating building science. So I have to, if I'm designing buildings, it's not something that I'm applying. It's in everything I do. So I need to understand what I'm doing. Imagine if a doctor cut you open and he only knew how to do stitches. He didn't know what to do once he was inside. He could make you all repaired really nice, but he didn't actually know how to perform the surgery, right? Yeah. We need to know what we're doing.
I was just at the dentist and we were joking about that a little bit. Could you imagine putting people in the chair, having your camera set up and say, well, I haven't really done this much. Let me YouTube it real quick.
Yeah, I'll get back to you. You just sit there. But the reality is there's architects and builders that, I've never done that before, but hey, we'll just let the builder figure it out.
Yeah. So Mark, listening to Jake Bruton speak the other day, and this is something that relates back to the way you think as well, and you work with Jake a lot, so this is a great example. Even when you design a plan, Jake said the first thing he looks at is the roof and where the water's going on any plan. He skips all the other stuff, all the other written pages. He goes straight to understand what's happening with water.
Jake has the fortunate thing of learning directly from Steven and immediately passing it on. When he absorbs it, he shares it. And down and out is a phrase that's been characterized a lot, and I don't know if you came up with it or
that's
Peter.
Joe Stieberg.
That's Joe.
That's Joe.
So there's that transfer of knowledge right there. It comes in, it's easily definable, and it's a repeatable process. So when Jake is going to look at that first, he's also saying, take those steps, right? We're applying that knowledge and we're transferring that knowledge so other people use it. Another technique that you were getting from Steve earlier, and this applies to all consumers, all contractors, all suppliers, and all architects, is our buildings inherently are becoming tighter because of what code and the materials we have access to are. They are inherently, even if it's not a goal, knowing that that's there as a priority. All of your projects has this, but it's important for other people to know that out of necessity, the mechanical room is part of the workings of your house, and your fresh air machines are a main topic on how that's going to be effective for your house. Can you tell people why we need to consider that on the front end versus hand it off to someone else to pigeonhole?
Yeah, I mean, our buildings are certainly getting more complex. And let's just take a look at ventilation. We use a lot of Zender systems. Even on a small 1,500 square foot house, we have 250, 300 linear feet of 3-inch piping that has to go through that house.
Where you got to put it?
And the question is where does it go? And, I don't necessarily say, okay, pipe 1 goes here, pipe 2 goes there, but I do have a general sense of, okay, we're going to create this trough. This trough can probably handle 10 or 12 runs across the house, and that gets us over to this side, and then we can disperse it relatively easily. But talking with the builder and making sure, and the homeowner, because that's going to infringe on ceiling height for a small part or the aesthetics, and it's our job to make those things look nice.
There's a great strategy for that. Everyone has followed the Matt Bloomquist house.
Yep.
We all saw open framing. It's this nice big open rectangle. Then they put the drywall up and the sealed can lights as that air barrier. Then they put in all their interior walls. And then they did just what you said. They ran all the Zender down the hallway to disperse it to the rooms. No one knows it. The kids, the students know it. They did it. But that's in a hallway. You don't notice the elevation change, and all those pipes are inside of the conditioned space.
We modified a plan that I did the work for a large production home builder in the Southwest. We have 5,000-6,000 homes down there.
And there's the answer to the quiz.
Well, yeah. And they all have that strategy. We would frame 9 feet. We would drop the hallway a foot. That whole foot of the hallway saw almost every room in the house. And so we could bleed ductwork. We can run ventilation system strategies through there. But the house was designed to be part of, to accept those systems. I mean, imagine if our body, that whoever designed it, you put in the muscles, you put in the skeletal system, and then they said, oh, we don't have any room for veins or arteries. Right? Because that's basically what you're doing with the house is you got to understand that the house is a system. And the reality is, you touched upon it. It's never going to get easier from today. It is only going to become more difficult because things are getting more complex. Sensors, mechanicals are getting more diverse. They're breaking them apart. We have ventilation systems now, dehumidification, humidification, heating, cooling. 40 years ago, you put a system in, it heated the house. If you wanted cooling, you opened a window. And those days are behind us. And it's even with water management strategy. It's like, let's put a big roof overhang. That was the strategy for years and years. Now there's rain screen systems, drain screen systems. Everybody's got the best solution. And you have to be able to not only understand what your goals are, but understand what is the appropriate solution for those goals.
Right. The system. You got to have a system in place that works for the entire wall. One of the things I heard Ross Trathui, do I say it right? Trathui from This Old House, who's speaking this morning, is he was talking about an HVAC system or MEP mechanical system, and a homeowner was complaining that it wasn't keeping up with their house. And Ross said, well, it may not be the mechanical system. It could be just the way your house is built. So it could be spec'd right. So where I'm going with this is, all right, not everybody can build a new house, right? Not everybody can understand, or have the budget to do that. Is there things that they can do to tighten up their house from an architect's perspective?
I mean, there certainly is, but the first thing you need to do is when you talk to that builder and you're the client, you can't take maybe so as an answer. Right? When you ask them, hey, do you have a thermal strategy? You need an answer from your builder, and not like, oh, don't worry about it. Our mechanical guy, he's a really good guy. We put in code level insulation in our mechanical guy. He'll put in a good system.
Yeah.
That's not an answer. right? You need to understand, how are we going to make that house airtight? What is your strategy? How do you employ it? How do you flash and your water management? And as a homeowner, and it baffles me, because you get a homeowner that, you know, even expensive houses, like I've been in $10+ million houses that have no water management strategy in a city like Houston that gets tons of rain. And you sit there and say, $10 million and this place is a hunk of junk.
Yeah. You know, Mark, one of the things we talk about is, you know, caulk, right? You know, let's say you got an old house. And I'll give you a personal example. I had an old house up here in East Lyme, built in 1960s, completely leaking air everywhere, mice galore coming in from everywhere. And one of the things that I did was I went around and I caulked between every joist, the whole band, you know, the rim joist as well as around the plate. And it made a major difference, even cut down on the insects coming in. Just that one little thing. I liked it so much I went and I then spray foamed the whole thing around to really tighten it up. And it made a big difference. And that's just a little example of what you can do that doesn't cost a lot of money.
So say you went through 10, 12 tubes of caulk, right? It's $140. And right there, you also applied the DIY. You knew that part was a gap. So you went after the leaks, and it's critters, it's whatnot. As the strategy, you said, I'm gonna lessen that. And then you enhanced it after air sealing all you could, right? With the spray foam to get the areas that you can't, because at roughly 1.5 inches of spray foam, you're getting air tightness. So the 1960s home and prior is the dominant stock we have of our buildings. And regardless of the 6 million homes plus that we need in the US, we have an immense amount. And you look at the embodied energy of our existing buildings. We have to first review what's going on with them. And then when we make these small adjustments, make sure we're not causing another problem. Because sometimes you'll hear anecdotes from people, and then you'll bring that into your project, and you could be creating a bigger problem.
You know, the whole 60s house routine, I mean, that 60s, 50s, you know, post-war era housing, even 80s housing was not that great. But the problem I have is when I drive down the street and I see a house getting built today with the same strategies as houses that I've remodeled and fixed. Right? I mean, that's a total disgrace to the building industry, and it's very insulting to the building industry that we can't, like, we know the problems, but yet there's still builders, architects, suppliers. You don't have to worry about that. Just, you know, we've been building that way for 40 years. It's worked, and we do it, and it isn't working, and it isn't the same. And, you know, I want to come back around to, you know, we're here at the Northeast Building Science Symposium, Stratford, Connecticut. And, you know, the beauty of this is yes, we have speakers. We have good speakers, Ben Bogey, Coda, Jake, Ross Trathui, etc. But nothing can replace 2 days of discussions with all the people in that room.
100%.
I mean, the last 2 nights I went out to dinner, I sat next to different people. We talked about building and some of the strategies. I heard about some of the things that didn't work on some houses from some builders. I heard, hey, we just use this brand new system here to do this. And man, I would recommend it. This morning, I knew Coda and Ross were going to be here. I brought questions for them. I sat down for, 45 minutes and I had both of their ears. Think about it, right? How much of a chance as an architect do I have to sit down at a table with Coda Weno and Ross Trathui and talk about conditioning systems, heating and cooling systems and such? You don't get that opportunity unless you sign up and you get out of your cave and come out here and be social. And bring your questions with you. Don't be bashful. As a young architect, I can remember sitting in my studio at my desk and sitting there going, do I seal that or do I leave that open? Should that be an open joint or a caulk joint? What's the benefits of both? The answers to those questions are in the other room. You pull Ben Bogey aside and say, hey, Ben, I have a couple water management questions, or hey, Jake, I have a couple builder business questions. I'm trying to start my own company, and, this is what I'm thinking. How should I do that? Or I get people coming up to me all the time. Hey, I'm designing my own house, and, I want to do this or that. And what do you think about this strategy? How does this work? Or what do you typically do in this situation? You cannot have those conversations outside of a situation like this.
Well, even the hot topic yesterday was labor. How do we get more team members to work with us, and how do we retain team members? So you have very successful, businesses here, some on stage, some not, right? And that is the opportunity to not just ask about building science, but you can ask about business as well, because we're all in the same boat together. We're not on an island by ourselves. It feels that way every day because we're fighting our own battles and doing our own thing. But this gives you a chance to kind of regenerate, get some new ideas, share ideas, and take that back with you immediately to your own business.
And, there's not an industry leader in that room that isn't willing to sit down and have a 5-minute chat over any question you bring. So if you're a young builder, young architect, if you're an old builder and you're looking to change your ways, I'm doing a project right now. Builder's been building for 35 years. He's turning the business over to his sons. And him and I, when we were together in Indiana,
Yep.
He sat me down and said, Steve, it's very, very important to me. I've been building for 35 years. I'm not going to change the way I do things. But you know what? My 3 sons are taking over. I know the industry is changing. The way we build houses is changing. I need you to emphasize all of the important things on these guys so that they're not going down the same path. He goes, I don't have that knowledge to give them. I'm relying on you in this project to really catapult them beyond where I am.
Steve, where do people get tips and tricks, and where can they find you and all the other great people that are out there that they can learn more?
I mean, there's a ton of places. First of all, Building Science Symposiums. Mark said it. We're going to be in Denver. We're going to be in Charlotte.
September in Denver.
Yeah, and next year we're already planning 4 more locations where we'll be somewhere around the country, and I might even say somewhere around North America. We might even go over the border a little bit, but that's a great start.
North or south?
North. And but the other thing I tell people too, buildingscience.com. Go there, you read every word on that website. And when you're done, guess what? Go back and read every word again. Because it's going to take about 3 times of reading that entire website to really get a feel for what's happening there and getting some information.
And if you don't like to read, you got the Unbuild It podcast. You guys got a bunch of other stuff.
We
right?
got the Unbuild It podcast. Peter Yost and Jake Bruton. We team up. And every 2 weeks, we drop a new podcast. It's on all the audio channels. We also tape it on YouTube so you can see the behind-the-scenes video antics there. For the Build Show Network, we have, 9 or 10 contributors. Myself, I'm dumping 6 videos a month on stuff I'm doing right now. Like we're going to go back at the end of the week. Mark and I are going to go to some projects. We're going to shoot some video, and those will be some upcoming videos. So it's not archive footage. It's not something I'm trying to move you in a direction of. It's just I'm opening the doors and saying, this is what we're doing this week. Sure. And this is why I did it. Now, it might not be the same reason you do it. If you want to modify it, I welcome that. If you want to have a discussion, give me a call. We'll talk about it. But that's what we need to do. We all need to get better. I tell everybody, we all have seats on the learning curve. There's nobody that knows it all, right? Everybody is still learning. And when we have those discussions, it prompts, even the people that are considered influencers or industry leaders to rethink what are they doing, and maybe it gives us even yet another solution or another level to look at things. So
awesome.
What's your YouTube page? Because your YouTube page that's how I spend my Saturday morning. I call it interesting. I call it, Stephen Basic College, right?
Yeah.
You dive in. So what is?
So I have everything is Steve Basic Architect. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I have a YouTube channel. I post at least a video a day. I try to anyways. And they're decent, 4 to 7 minutes. And we're talking about a rain screen siding, or we're talking about the geothermal system in a house, or whatever the case is. But I'm just sharing my knowledge. And every video, even though, we walk around the house every 2 months. I try and throw a new tidbit or a new angle on what we're looking at and why I'm talking about that.
Yeah, I mean, and it's real time, right? It's it's on your mind at the very moment, and every builder goes through the same process, or architect goes through the same process. You know, you're at different places at different times during the process of any project you're working on. And Sharon, that's awesome. Mark, what do you think?
I got one wrap up, and this is something that I've learned from Steven. Before events, you always tell people, when you're at the International Builder Show, come find me and say hello. When people put themselves out there to do that, do take advantage of it, whether you're at the performance zone stage with these guys or whether you're at the JLC. They want to hear what's going on with you and your ideas, because what you encounter feeds all of us, right? And so when you pass that on, that's going to trigger an old memory or a new problem to solve.
Yes, I agree with everything. But even more, you know, people look to me to, hey, what do you think about the industry? Where do you think we're going? The way I find out where we're going is talking to 20 or 30 different people on Tuesday of the International Builder Show. Yep. And I say, come find me. I'm not trying to be egotistical. It's just, you know, people have, we're Red Hammer 2 on Instagram. I don't know who that is. You know, guy comes up and says, hey, I'm Jim, you know, with so-and-so builders on Instagram. And I'm like, what's your handle? And he's like, you know, Power Hammer 21 or something. And it's like, okay, I can't make that correlation. So I ask you to come and introduce. I'm not going to bite your head off. I want to have that conversation with you. Are you a young builder, an old builder? Did you just start out? Are you somebody that has a lot of experience that I should, we can continue that conversation with? But I get a really good sense of what the industry is doing by having all of these conversations and, you know, symposiums like this. I talked to a bunch of people yesterday about what they're doing and how they're doing it. So I get a sense of what the industry needs, so I can say, well, maybe I need to put more stuff out about the zero energy houses we're doing, or the passive houses we're doing, or I need to concentrate more on ventilation systems because people aren't really understanding that. I'm getting a lot of questions about that. So it allows me to provide some direction and hopefully target some of those softer areas in the industry.
Yeah, I love it. And on top of that, you end up learning something.
I always learn something. Always.
So we have a quiz answer.
He gave it away.
Yeah, but he said an area. You didn't say the state.
Oh, so the state is New Mexico. They were the largest privately held production home builder, and at our heyday, we were probably doing about 1,600 homes a year.
Good.
And I have 200 different plans with them, and
wow.
I just have another kind of semi-production builder that I had a conversation with recently that we're going to talk about maybe doing some work together and getting that up to speed. So it's and then I'm gonna break it. I can't give you the full onslaught of what we just did, but I will tell you this. Last week, I was in a very specific location.
Somewhere.
We taped 10 episodes of just some really fundamental but very, very sound information that it's going to be release. It's coming out sometime this fall. We'll have more about it, but stay tuned. This one's I think it's going to be a great one for the industry.
I don't want to wait until fall. I mean, that's kind of a long time, right?
couple months away, but we're putting it together. It's all set. We're just getting it organized and getting everything, all our ducks in a row, so that when it does get released. But there's the problem with information that I tell people is, the internet's got a lot of great information. The problem with information is the internet's got a lot of bad information.
That's right.
Right? Everybody's got an opinion. Some of them are good, some of them are right, some of them are spot on, but there are some that I don't agree with necessarily. So this little thing that we just did, I'm laying down lines in the sand and I'm telling you exactly how I think and what I believe in and how I think things should get done. So
love it. So, all right, coming out in fall, 10 episodes. Put it on your calendar. He doesn't do a lot of videos, so it takes him a while to get.
I'll tell you what. I promise to come back and we'll talk about what we did specifically on your show.
I love it. I love it.
We're ready for it. So follow Steven Baczek Architect on YouTube, and Dave, we've had Steven on many episodes.
We have. So you can do a search and find past episodes as well.
Do the search, and we're on every week. I really enjoyed this live. Really enjoyed the symposium. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. BS Friday, everybody. Put it on your calendar, 1 o'clock every Friday. And thanks to the Building Science Symposium for allowing us to bring you all of these behind-the-scenes conversations. Dave Cooper, Mark Wille, and our good friend Stephen Baczek. We'll see you next time.